Now it's time for Klas to play on the piano.
Yeah, I was actually thinking I would play at the end instead.
Oh,
and
okay,
we start
absolutely.
with
No
talking a little
worries.
bit about improvisation. I
No
suppose.
worries.
Yeah.
What is improvisation for you, and when do you improvise?
Yeah, that is a bit of a tricky question. So I'm an improvising musician, and I also do artistic research on improvisation. And for me, I think it's more about exploring what improvisation can become, how it can change, how it can become different things in different circumstances. So that's pretty much what I'm experimenting with in different ways. And also maybe questioning, do we need to know for certain what improvisation is, or when we are improvising, or something like that. So what I try to do is to work with methods and also concepts for treating improvisation more as an open question, a field of open questions, and exploring what that can mean in practice. So, for example, we usually think about improvisation as having something to do with it's unforeseen. We haven't planned exactly what we're going to do. But that can also mean very different things under different circumstances. So typically we would think that improvisation is to make spontaneous choices, and that we consciously decide what we're going to do in some way. But I would question that, because first of all, I think that most of the choices I actually do as an improviser are non-conscious. I'm not actually conscious about the choices I'm doing and how they happen in a way. And even the conscious choices I do, it's interesting to look at in terms of a process, something happening. The choices that I'm conscious about seem to emerge from that flow. It's more like a stretched out moment or a stretched out time. And when we start looking at these non-conscious choices as well, I find that there's something interesting about it, because what can happen is a lot of the stuff happens by chance. And this is something I want to sort of emphasize, that chance is really important. And as an improviser, it's to celebrate chance. It's to invite chance to happen more in different ways. And what then is chance? And for me, it's very much about a relationality, something that's complex, relationality, that's happening within the body, but also the body in the environment, the body in the instrument, the acoustics. And this relationality is too complex for me to grasp. It's too complex for me to sort of control. It's rather the other way around, that allowing for this complexity to so the choices can sort of emerge from that, non-conscious or conscious. And when this happens, I mean, in a way, for me, in my work, what it's about is learning to let go of control. And that's like the key for me, how to do that, because it's not easy. We want to be in control. We want to feel certain about what we're doing, how I'm choosing, and knowing what improvisation is or what I'm doing. But to let go of control, to use different methods to create the conditions for something to happen that I'm not in control of, is actually what is most important for me.
Yeah, but how could improvisation be part of a pro-social society then?
Yeah, I think, I mean, in a way, inviting this chance aspect, the relational complexity, I think is, in a way, crucial to also political change. Because there's something that happens when we learn to affirm something that's not certain, that's non-controlled in a way, and also because when we do that, we can expand our ways of sensing and also feeling, etc. But in relation to an environment that we are included in, that also sort of goes beyond us, and And that's important, I think, for this that you were also talking about, polarization and segregation. So in a way, I think of it as allowing ourselves to become animated, to attune to something that exceeds the individual, me, but also to that which is goes beyond the human, which is a perspective I would like to introduce here, because it's also about, for me, the relationality is not where the human is at the center. It's how the non-human or more than human or whatever we want to call it also affects us. So it's in a way to move beyond the if you want, the kind of arrogance of putting humanity always at center or the individual. And there's this quote by a writer and activist, Bayo Akomolafe, that I really like. He puts it this way: "The times are urgent. Let us slow down." And what does he mean with this? I think that's really interesting, because there's something here about the slowness of process, where we're not trying to control the process, where we're not trying to reach a certain outcome, but allowing something slowly to emerge in this complex relationality where we are not fully in control. It's to accept that we are not fully in charge of the outcomes, and instead maybe become more ecologically attuned, more open in a way, so we can be decentered, but of course do this with an acknowledgement of power dynamics at the same time. So there's always, which also has been raised before, these with manipulation and all these things that can happen. So we have to have an attention to both of these things as well. But yeah, inviting chance and non-control, I think, is super important for me.
Yeah, interesting. But when do you improvise, and when do you need a script?
I think in a way, we're always improvising. We cannot not improvise, whether we want to acknowledge that or not. But there's, I mean, we can do it in different ways. We can, under different conditions, even when we have a very pre-composed piece, that you were, for example, playing something pre-composed, we always have the opportunity to, in the playing of that piece, open to relationality, to become animated by that which is more than the piece, more than the player, something that goes beyond, in a way, our control. So it's for me, it's not so much about certain scripts or not, it's just different conditions. But then I'm also interested in using ideas or forms of, I call them usefully vague ideas or abstract ideas that can open up or invite more of chance in a way, or more of relationality. So, for example, when I'm going to play in a little while, I haven't decided anything what I'm going to do, but the moment I'm at the piano, I'm going to have some idea, something abstract, something that creates a setting from which I can invite chance in a way, and this relationality. And also, I think what's important is, for me, is that these usefully vague ideas, they are not mine. They belong to the world. I don't own them as an artist. It's something that sort of is there in a way, or arrives somewhere. But I can become sensitive to them. I can attune to these sort of usefully vague things in the world and see what happens with that. That's how I think about it.
And how can it contribute to a better world, improvisation as a whole?
I think the way I'm approaching improvisation, like I was saying here about the more kind of chaotic and about chance and stuff, I think part of that is to question what we mean with what we typically mean with striving for a better world. Because I mean, if we're honest about it, the idea of progress is also connected to centuries of colonialism, actually. and the ways that we have also exploited peoples and what we call natural resources. And so I think we really need to question the idea of when we talk about doing better or getting better at things, what that means. So there's something here for me. There's something very paradoxical about the idea of progress, because if it's too much about desiring control and certainty and all these things, I think that's part of the reason that we're also involved in ecological destruction, for example. And there's a lot about it is just how we think about difference, actually, because I think at base of colonial, the heritage of colonial thinking is that we think about difference as separation. And this way of thinking about difference is also what's at base of racism, misogyny, ableism, all these problems that we also find ourselves in different ways. And maybe the most important, actually, is the separation between human and non-human. But it could also be all kinds of things, different kinds of knowledges, artistic knowledge, scientific knowledge, etc. So I think what improvisation can also do is to point attention to this relationality, is difference without separability, actually. There is difference, obviously, there is always difference. But it's not in the way that we tend to think about difference as something we can absolutely identify and create those kinds of separations in a way. So with improvisation, we can relate to the world more as a kind of continuum of things, rather, where difference is related in a non-separable way, in that sense. So I think of this as a sort of decolonizing, actually, to decolonize our modern habits of how we relate human to non-human and all these things. And there's an artistic research community called Gesturing Towards Decolonial Futures that I'm very much inspired by. And I think one of the main points is that in order to develop new forms of responsibility, we actually need to face our own contradictions, whatever that entails. And to heal this, to develop a collective capacity to hold space for difficult and painful things without wanting to be saved from discomfort by hasty solutions. And to meet chance is actually to be uncomfortable. It is to be in that anxiety, that risk of not knowing how things are going to play out. And to slow down, as I was saying before, and also I think there's this really beautiful way putting it that Donna Haraway, one writer that I like a lot, how she puts it, to stay with the trouble. So that's how I think maybe improvisation can be involved in this, to slow down, to be in the process, to not try to take too much control, to not try to be too certain about things in a way.
Eva, what do you have to say about this?
No, I needed to make some notes when you were speaking here, because I think this is to also educate these spaces when in the of uncertainty, and also actually I was thinking about the failure theories. We need also to know more about how to fail and to lose ourselves into the chances of failures. Yeah. So I think you put it so beautiful there with the quotations. Yeah.
Yes. I think it's interesting with the word happiness in Old English comes from hap, which is actually chance or luck. So in that perspective, happiness actually requires us to be in discomfort, and because there's in every discomfort, in every sort of pain, there is also the opportunity to discover an unknown happiness in a way. So it's not so much about satisfying our own needs and things like this, but being in that uncertainty where something new can happen.
Right.
I think that's nice how it works in the language sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Is it something more you want to add, or do you want to play now? Oh,
Maybe-
Johannes wants to say nothing.
Yeah, but I thought about this losing control. One condition to be able to lose control is to acquire some kind of other control, because then you can be safe and lose control. I mean, since you know that you're a brilliant pianist and you can treat the piano, that's way that you have achieved the control of the piano, so you can be safe in losing control. Is that right? I mean, for me, it's a scale between losing control and having control to be able to lose the control. I don't know, but I didn't want to prolong because
no, of course that's a very interesting perspective. But I think, I mean, what we usually do is learn how to take control, of course. But the difference is the difficulty is how to learn skills for losing control, and what does that mean? Because I don't think it's that simple that we can just put two different controls against each other and then something will happen. I think there is something else, and now we don't have time for that. But there are, I call it methods or techniques for relation and for disordering and setting up conditions that invite this sort of openness for chance. You know. But I can try to embody it by playing instead.
Good.
Thank you so much, Klas.
Yeah.